Back in May 2023, I wrote a script about Howard Jones' album Dialogue and how much I didn't like it. I did record the audio for it at the time, albeit before I had a microphone, but I didn't make it into a full video. I think the script is fine, I just don't really want to make the full video anymore, so why not revive it in a sort of podcast style on my second channel? The only things I edited were outdated years and a reference to my personal life that aged poorly. Enjoy! Welcome to Funny Synth Tuesdays, where I dump the stuff that is too good for my main channel. I love cheesy synth pop. You do too, even if you won't admit it. There is something so addictive about annoying synth riffs and surface-level lyrics sung just off-key enough to where you notice it. Of course, Howard Jones is the king of cheesy synth pop, and puts the subgenre to shame. He can actually sing, his riffs are catchy yet tolerable, and the simplicity of the lyrics fits his universal themes of love and making the world a better place. It's music that anyone can understand. It shouldn't even be considered cheesy synth pop. Then why did Dialogue suck so much? I can't get over it. I was so excited to see what was next in his quartet of albums. Engage from 2015 displayed some long-form songs, and a unique merging of song and video, while Transform from 2019 returned to the classic Howard Jones vibes, with some updated synths and electronics, aided by trance producer legend BT. With the first half of the albums being absolute bangers, I expected Dialogue to be the same. But as soon as the first single dropped, I knew my hopes and dreams were shattered. Something feels incredibly off about Dialogue. That's the easiest way to put it. I get that it was conceived during the COVID-19 lockdown, a tumultuous time when everyone was depressed and constantly feared the worst. The thing is, it was released in the middle of 2022. The vast majority of the world had long since returned to normal, and it wasn't in dire need of an optimism boost. You could see it as a way to reflect the emotions of the time, being free and all, but even if that perspective makes sense, the album just sounds so artificial and planned that the point doesn't get across. There are 8 tracks on Dialogue, thankfully only making up 35 minutes of material. Out of those 8 tracks, 5 were singles. 5, each one was worse than the last. For the 5 months leading up to the album release, we got to hear a little more of what the album would hold, and every month I became more and more frustrated with the content. I try not to be a pessimist. I'm surrounded by too many people who believe their problems are the only problems in the world, and who refuse to have even a shred of confidence. It's really taxing on a person, but I digress. If I could have just a bit of comfort in an overly positive Howard Jones album, I would feel less alone, just as I do when I listen to the vast majority of his other music. For an album as bubbly and sugary as Dialogue, it does little to make me feel good.
Celebrate it together.
Celebrate It Together is one of the worst album openers I have ever heard. It's agonizing from the first seconds. It's clothing store music. It sounds like clothing advertisement music. Generic electropop, devoid of soul and life, and existing only to introduce the blandest of themes and the newest deals. And it gets worse from there. He references "things can only get better" in this song. Drops a line in the chorus, "things are not getting better, shut up." There's better ways to reference one of your own songs seamlessly. Maybe don't reference a line in the verse, not the literal name of your literal most popular song. Maybe don't drop the line in the chorus. Don't drop a line from a significantly better song into this horrible song, the bare minimum. The vocals also sound sleepy, as if they aren't pushed to the peak of energy, which would feel right for a song about coming back to the real world and celebrating human interactions. We're off to a horrible start. You're better off listening to the original "Things Can Only Get Better," seeing it as this is just an inferior take on it.
Formed by the Stars.
At least, things got better. A little, with Formed by the Stars. The synth is pretty, with a balance between beeps and boops and a spacey feel to fit the lyrics. The vocals are a bit muffled in the verses. Spoiler alert, this is a theme in the whole album. It's one of the better singles though, but granted, it takes very little to be better than Celebrate It Together.
My One True Love.
He hits the high notes, kind of. Not without help from autotune or something, but the notes are hit. It drags on entirely too long, despite only being 4 minutes long. The synth is a saving grace, and while pretty, it's not as good as the song before it. I shouldn't be comparing songs, but that's how things have ended up.
Be the Hero.
Feels like you're breaking
This is the best song on the album. It's by no means a good song, but it is the best song. I listen to the song unironically. It is mediocre, objectively shit, and it's awesome. The swelling synth and the energetic chorus brings a much needed spark to this album. Even the mellower verses have a kick to them. It's a song you could sing at the top of your lungs while standing on the peak of a mountain. I enjoy romanticizing things. The vocals aren't awful, except that chorus towards the end where it oozes with effects, but I can overlook it. I'm just glad to have something tolerable. Also, this wasn't even a single. I quite enjoy its status as a mere album track, since it provides a glimmer of hope into a disappointing collection of singles, leading to an equally as disappointing album. Enjoy it while it lasts.
Who you really want to be.
Fun synths open this and carry throughout. It feels like something off Engage. Then Howard starts singing, and I cringe a little. I'm surprisingly more tolerant of the deeper, vocoded kind of bit in the chorus. I think that's because it's obviously intentional, and used in contrast with Howard's naturally higher voice. The normal singing is just crispy, blurred. It's not clear, it's a bit slurred. How does he sound older than he did in 2019, only 3 years earlier? I enjoy the ray gun synth flips though, those are guilty pleasures. The song is catchy. Annoyingly so, that chorus gets stuck in your head, and it's not a good song, but fun for the time you're forced to listen to it.
You are the peacemaker.
Breaking the silence, mending the violence, brothers and sisters.
More clothing store advertisement type electronics to start us off. The song is quiet, a nice change in pace from the past two songs, but I cannot tell for the life of me what he's saying in the chorus. These vocals are killing me. Overall, it's an average song that I guess I can tolerate hearing, although I wouldn't seek it out.
To feel love.
They must know that they are gods, capable.
The song starts off very poorly. The muffled, edited vocals kick off the first 30 seconds and pop up every now and then. The instrumentals sound like something from Vince Clarke. This is a compliment despite it being a wasted opportunity because it's on dialogue. This is the longest song on here. Agony. I don't have much to say because this is a very unmemorable song.
I believe in you.
This was the first single, and it made me start to question everything. It's not a bad song, not by a long shot, but when you compare it to Howard's other music, even Transform, it sounds so generic. Lyrics about believing in yourself and how Howard also believes in you, aw, how nice. The guitar and synth is just okay, the whole song is just okay. It exists, it could be worse. Also, please watch the lyric video. It's just the lyrics put over stock footage. This is all we got for video for this album. That concludes the 35 minutes I spent reluctantly listening to dialogue. This album feels like American cheese. What? Okay, I'm gonna keep this in. The deli sliced stuff is divine, but often people think about like Kraft singles and school lunch grade cheese. Dialogue is processed cheese, marketed as a delicacy when it's actually just flavored plastic. I love cheese, not individually wrapped slabs of aftertaste. Anyways, I think I got lost in the metaphor. You think? Moving on. Thank God. I've complained a lot about the vocals. Howard Jones is like, what, 70 now? He's been doing this music thing for a very long time. It's amazing that he's still doing it. Of course his voice is going to age. It would be more of a shock if it didn't. In my personal opinion, however, unedited vocals being notably aged is better than edited vocals trying to hide that age. And even if the editing is intentional for the direction of the album, it just doesn't sound good. It loses the natural feel that Howard has kept for 40 years, just pure honest singing about unspoken yet ever true feelings everyone has. Transform had its fair share of edited vocals, don't get me wrong, but at least felt somewhat more natural and worked with the album. On a related note, the subjects of these songs are all positive. Nothing can be interpreted as even slightly negative. I get that it's not Howard's vibe to be a downer, and I can't blame him. I do believe that, since it is technically a COVID-19 album, defined by its release date and approach toward togetherness, it could have at least addressed some of the fears and emotions of living in a lockdown society. That would make for an interesting contrast in the songs rather than focus solely on being all, yay, happy, the world is back to normal, and ignoring the very real 2 years leading up to the release. But then again, if he did address COVID and, even worse, name-dropped it, I think that would age really poorly. Or at least sound super outdated, even in a couple of years. Dialogue feels unnatural. It's like it's forced to keep the upbeat tempo and make the listener feel all excited about the good in the world. I think it feels fake. The album has an air of being ingenuine to it. I doubt that Howard threw it together at the last minute, and I feel bad for saying this, but dialogue is generic music with no real soul to it. The pandemic ends, dialogue drops in to celebrate it, but we've already completed the celebration. It's like a last-second attempt to cash in on the decline of a deadly virus. Generic. I described a few songs with this adjective, but I don't believe I'm overusing it. There's no substance to dialogue. It exists to fit the quota of Howard's 4-album collection. The song he wrote for that one movie about animal crackers feels more authentic than everything off dialogue. I don't really hate this album. I choose to reserve that mental energy for other things, but overall I am more disappointed than anything. I can tolerate dialogue in its songs to the point where listening to them as background music is fine. It's choosing to digest all 35 minutes that I struggle to do. Could I just be a pessimist? Do I just hate modern music by my favorite artists because they're adapting to the new landscape and aren't making carbon copies of their 80s hits? Is dialogue actually as rough as I'm making it out to be? Yes and no to all three of those questions. It's unrealistic to ask for the old vocals and vintage synthesizers of decades past, but by God, some new music is unpalatable. What I do know is that Global Citizen, which was allegedly going to be released in 2024 and has not been released yet, is going to be its own separate entity in Howard Jones's catalog. It could have the same feel as its three predecessors, and it could be entirely unique. Only time will tell, but at the very least, I hope it is an improvement from dialogue.
Thank you.